This podcast episode has a CC by SA 4.0 license. This license requires that reusers give credit to the creator. It allows reusers to distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the material in any medium or format, even for commercial purposes. If others remix, adapt, or build upon the material, they must license the modified material under identical terms. Thank you. Hello, this is the Collab podcast. I am Charlie Wilson. I'm working as the communications officer for the International Permaculture Collab. Today I have two wonderful guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, my name is Daniel. I am Brazilian, living in Portugal for 4.5 years. We live in South Portugal, the Algarve. I'm a philosopher of ecology and agroecologist. And the main project I'm working with is called Climate Design. It's a project to connect and mosaic landscapes and territories across continents. So it's definitely not a local project, but it involves all the local projects in the areas where this project is working with.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cândida. I live here in South Portugal, where I was born and where I came back to a few years ago. My background is in biology and aquatic toxicology. So I focus on how contaminants affect negatively the environment, the aquatic environment. And more recently, in the past years, I've been exploring yoga and permaculture, and now agroecology, and lots of philosophical conversations, and collaborating on the climate design project.
Okay, wow, wonderful. Great. Very diverse qualifications and interests. It's wonderful. And I've read a bit about your project, about your farm. Would you like to introduce listeners and tell us a bit about your farm?
Yeah, the farm starts over 50 years ago, when my parents came to Portugal. They came on a honeymoon and then decided to come back and bring up their children in a more healthy environment than the city. And they had the land focused for nurseries, tree nurseries, irrigation company, with materials and workshops and lots of workers. So that finished some years ago when they retired, and now the land is covered in trees. It's like a botanical garden, a big diversity of plants. So yeah, 50 years of mulching because we don't remove anything, and a fair amount of irrigation, which this environment needs, this climate needs, and it's got installations that we have access to. So we receive volunteers. There's a workshop. There's all the tools that we have constant maintenance of, and it's a very inspiring place. It's very, very fresh, very cool in the summer, and there's lots of space. There's lots of corners that you can go and just be by yourself or have inspiring conversations on the terrace over meals. And yeah, what would you add to that?
Yeah, the farm project is also connected with our house. We decided to move to this house too close to the place where Canada was born and grew up. And it was at the beginning of pandemics. I was living in an apartment in Sintra, nearby Lisbon, and we noticed that the lockdowns would come. Then we decided to move down because here we have a farm and there we would have a tiny apartment. So no sense in abandoning the farm. So we started digging around here, seeing that so much things could have been done. So we found this house. It's a kind of contract where we can live kind of in exchange for taking care of the place. We pay no rent, and it's half a hectare property. The house is 300 square meters. It's actually 3 houses altogether. And yeah, we have space for events, we have space for meditation, for retreats, classes, camping site.
Yes.
It's guests. It's quite a good space. So we are pretty much finishing all the details to be able to receive a lot of people from the collab and from the partners of collab and from other environments and networks to share good moments here.
Wow, that's great. Yes, I hope to see it in real life one day. And yeah, it's great. You're not starting from scratch. There's been 50 years of work done. So yeah, sounds like a big advantage. And yeah, me personally, I'm also living in Southern Europe. I know it can get very hot and very dry. It's quite a problem in the area I'm living. So I wonder what specific problems you face in this region, anything related to climate or anything else.
Yeah, the public policies from European Union decided that this place is fit for orange monocultures, water intensive. So all the irrigation of these orange plantations comes from the water table. And because of that, the water table is depleted. All the levels are below the sea level, and we are very close to the sea level, to the seashore. So we have entrance of seawater into the water table, and it's getting a bigger and bigger problem. Also, we have extreme loss of biodiversity. Most of the farmers abandon the lands in the hilly areas a little bit further north from our place. And we have a lot of abandoned villages, same as in Andalusia. Mass tourism is a big issue as well, but they're more concentrated in the cities and towns by the sea. So we have a place, a region with a lot of potential for good agricultural practices, but public policies drives almost everything, including the public budgets, to the opposite way. So in terms of climate, we are depleting the water, so we don't have water to drink. We are depleting the water, so we don't have water table to supply good farming practices or good forest growing. So biodiversity loss is immense.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say that even the ecosystem that is adapted to this kind of climate is struggling. So it's very hard to have even a vegetable garden, but those plants are not adapted. They're introduced. But to see the plants that for decades have been considered those that will survive without much rain or have very deep roots, or it's changing. We're seeing lots of imbalances on the way how they respond to rain events, or even the dusts from the Sahara last year was 7 times more in frequency than usual. There's fire risk, of course. There was a big fire yesterday, quite close to here. It's quite apocalyptic sometimes when we add all the layers of pressure.
Wow.
Lack of water. It's not something new, the problem with water, but it's being exacerbated now with everything else at the same time.
Yeah, sure. And I have been in one of these big dust storms coming from the Sahara, and it really felt like the apocalypse. Like the sun is blocked out, everything looks very orange. It's crazy. So could you explain to a layperson, someone who doesn't really understand some of these terms, why is biodiversity so important?
Let's imagine that we eat only and nothing else than toasts.
Mm,
How healthy can we be? I mean, we suppose we can digest toasts, right?
mm,
But not everything from a toast is perfectly fit for a healthy human organism. So we would have a lot of excess that we don't really digest, and this excess will be turned into something else. This something else will be a problem if we don't have the other organisms to take this and turn into food. So biodiversity is not only about the other beings eating what is not being digested by those beings that we consider principals or the main beings in the environment, but also because the the very evolution of life brought us here. So the cycles of adaptation through the millions of years brought us to take the very best of the planet Earth through time. Let's say some billions of years of evolution brought us to the place we are here today, with all the different species eating different things, transforming different parts of chemical existences into food, into energy conversion, into life. And every time we have a loss of biodiversity in any environment, we are losing not only the biodiversity, but the capacity to live in that environment
mm.
with health. This is a very instrumental way to say it, but it's a way that most Western people could understand.
Yeah.
If it's not useful to us, most Western people wouldn't say that it's useful at all.
Mm,
So I'm trying to be didactic for Western people. So it's useful for us that we have as much biodiversity as possible.
mm.
And I'm not talking about the right that the other beings have to live. Of course, they have the right, but I think it doesn't matter much for unsensitive people
Mm,
that the other beings have the right to live. It should
yeah.
matter a lot. It should be the first thing. Sometimes we have different levels of sensibility.
Mm.
Yeah, there's plenty of other reasons, but I can think of these two now. And
Yeah, I think a simple example is when maybe people have been in a situation where there's been a problem and we can't find the light, we can't find the solution. And what do? We do a brainstorming, for example, or we bring some insight from other people that will bring different perspectives. And maybe the solution isn't immediately there, but there's more elements to play with, to consider. And that's diversity. That's
Yeah.
richness in diverse elements, different angles, different perspectives. And so that's a biodiversity environment because we are bio as well. So biodiversity is in everything. It's a benefit. If we could keep one thing in mind when approaching anything, to keep biodiversity in mind is a good way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I never really thought about it in these kind of broader terms of thinking about the social spheres as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we've all seen the dystopian movies where it's just a desert wasteland.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, I have read about some court cases where someone represented a tree and the tree was given rights and nobody was allowed to build there. So it's very interesting thinking about these, yeah, actually giving legal rights to these non-human entities. Mm. So we've spoken a bit about some of the problems you're facing in the area you're living. And yeah, I wonder, how is your project going to help?
Yeah. Let's suppose that the main problem that we have today, I don't think it is. Okay, just let's play that this hypothesis is valid. Okay, let's suppose the main problem that we have today is climate changes.
Mm.
So, what's climate? Climate is not something that happens just on top of our roof, and then next neighbor's roof is there's no climate there, so it's not my problem. Climate is not something that happens just on top of my city or my county, municipality. It's not something that happens just on top of my immediate environment. Climate is something that happens on top of the thing that we call planet, right? Climate is happening in planet scale. There's no boundaries in planet scale, because climate is defined firstly by the combination of gravity, the Earth gravity, and sun heat. So gravity brings all the gases that makes the atmosphere together, making this very thin layer of gas around the Earth and water. And outside this, we don't have really climate, right? So climate is this very thin membrane of different mixes of gases that we call air that are being influenced by the gravity, pulling all the gases down. So if not, the gases will just flow away to the space. So gravity is playing a very important role in pulling the oxygen and the carbonic gas all down. And also the sun is playing a very important role in heating the planet. So heating the planet means evaporation of water, moving the cold air and the hot air together because of difference of pressures and temperatures. So climate is about planet scale. There's no such thing as municipality climate or municipality climate actions or company climate actions. There's no such thing. It's just lack of perspective. Understanding things this way, like if someone alone can do things about the climate. Therefore, any project about climate that really aim to see what's happening must acknowledge climate scale. So climate scale is not the scale of a vegetable garden or an orchard or a private property. It doesn't matter how big the private property is. Because it's not about a place. Climate is not about a place. Any place is influenced by climate, and any place can influence climate in an atomic scale. But what happens if we drop one atom of anything into the ocean? Well, it will get lost. You see no difference, right? That's what we're talking about, doing climate actions in local scale. Not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't influence or lever the climate in the scale that the climate works. So what we're doing is, in the first place, trying to understand the climate scale, because without that, we are fooling ourselves. And the second is acting properly in climate scale, or acting in proper scale towards climate. So the name climate design is because we understand that using the biotic pump principle. Maybe I could explain what the biotic pump is. So using the biotic pump principle, we can influence the direction of winds and also the amount of moisture of these winds coming from the oceans and seas and big masses of water like lakes into the continents. So biotic pump is when you have a very large amount of biodiverse forests in specific places that these forests can suck the moist air from the oceans and seas and big lakes into the continents and turn this moist air into clouds, rain clouds. Then you can literally make rain. So biotic pump is about designing good forest patches in specific places of the planet to make rain. That's what the project is about.
Wow, it's fascinating. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, very educational for me.
You were asking, so what is it that we can contribute to? Like maybe we're talking about global scale, big scale, and it's also about what happens with the people on locally, because without them, it will not happen. Just like without them, the climate change wouldn't be happening. So it goes the same the same way. And often we get the question, okay, so it's about forests. So how many trees have you planted? But it's actually not the first step.
Yeah.
Because if we go out and plant trees, as is already happening in big scale, the conditions are so adverse at this point that most are not surviving. So we need to, it seems counterproductive, but we need to go a couple of steps before and create the conditions, the social and economic conditions on site, so in the villages, in these hilly mountain areas, so that the people are there, trained and ready and satisfied to be there, to then take care of those patches of forest, agroforests, right?
Mostly, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's not about using technology to do this. It's about using very basic knowledge in biology, in ecology, in geography, in sociology, in politics, in anthropology, in psychology, education. So using very basic level of knowledge, but combining this knowledge to mosaic the places where people live, the landscapes that people have been creating for centuries and millenniums. So mosaicing these places with patches of very good quality biodiverse forests in specific parts of the planet. So it's much more about educating people to create the conditions for a mindset change. And then the trees will be planted by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because the connection, the relationship between people's understanding and the need for trees will emerge. We don't need to convince people that trees need to be planted. We need to create an environment where people acknowledge that we cannot live with health without biodiverse forests around us. And around can mean, well, for the people who live in a desert-like environment, they don't need forests there. It's a desert, right? And we don't need to turn all the deserts in the world into forests. It's not about that. So we are not regreening the entire Sahara with Amazon rainforest. It's not about that. It's about understanding where forests should be because they were before. Like the east coast of Brazil, the coast of Brazil, we had, not 200 years ago, we had an area with very dense tropical rainforest of 3, 4, 500 kilometers width. Now we have less than 2% of this forest remaining. All the rest have been turned into agriculture.
Wow.
It doesn't matter what adjective you put to this agriculture, conventional, organic, whatever. It's 2% forest, less than 2%. So it doesn't matter if you are using this or that product and this or that is more healthy. Where are the forests?
Mm.
So without the forests, we don't have the climate patterns that we had before. So it causes disruption in global scale because it's an amount of territory, it's an amount of area that levers the planetary climate in planet scale change. And we have places like this in all the continents, in Australia, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in North America, in South America. We have situations like this because of the Western mindset that believe that humans have the right to destroy everything, to take what is not theirs to be taken.
Yeah, wow, thank you for sharing. And yeah, I love your approach, like change people's minds and the world changes by itself organically.
Mhm.
So I have quite a broad question for you now. It can cover a lot of things like economics, the social spheres, the soil. Yeah, it's a very big question. So I just wonder, what challenges are you facing as you're moving forwards with this project?
Which one to start with? Yeah. Okay, one challenge is people momentum. So, like for our work, having enough number of people to lift off. This in the sense of people that are trained, that understand these concepts, understand the vision, and understand where we need to go. So slowly we're encountering these potential team members. But of course, people are very busy. This keeps us very busy, and there's only so much time in each day. So it's human resources challenge to at a time when we actually need to speed up because things are escalating as we can feel it every day, especially in the summer, at least right now. And this is hand in hand with the challenge of funding. So we want people to have, us included, a stable life in that sense, that there's no worry of where, how do I pay my bread tomorrow because I'm so busy doing all of this very important work. And if we want to convince people to come back to the land, then there has to be some kind of security there. To not mention the villages having a health service and a school service and the basic services and facilities. So that's very summarized.
Yeah, that is it. With more engagement of people, would be much easier to have access to funds at different scales. Like we are working to establish a fund for microfunding. So this fund is being designed. I'm working on the framework of this fund right now. It's a kind of partial project into the climate design project, right? So this fund for microfunds is being designed to provide funds for local organizations in specific parts, in specific areas of that I mentioned before of the climate design project. For example, in Brazil, specific territories in Brazil where this land should be applied. So each one of these microfunds will have something between 2,500 euros up to 10,000 euros, each of the microfunds. And the idea is to have something around 500 projects under this amount approved per year. So with this, we can connect and network a lot of different organizations, support indigenous organizations and peasants organizations that are rooted at the ground. They know, they have the knowledge, they have the experience of living in that territory, they have the life experience of being present through all the changes in the past centuries. So they know the story, they know the problem, and they know the solution. They don't need anything else from the outside, but some support. And the only support that Europe can provide is money. So let's channel money, right? So this fund is for this. And with this, the expectation is that we can bring on board to share the same narrative about this project. So sharing the same narrative means we have the general idea of the project, the general idea of how the project would work, and we need local partners. So 500 local partners means something. It can mean less in a country as big as Brazil, but it means something even in a country as big as Brazil. And next year, another 500. Next year, another 500. So time by time, this network can be stronger, and with a lot of hope and discipline and reciprocal supporting, we can do things at proper scale. But again, it's not about providing support for one project. It's not about publishing one thing and expect that the rest of the world will change because of that. It needs to be a collective work. But for a collective work, we need proper scale support, proper scale funding, proper scale sense of collectiveness from the different people that would come on board.
Yeah, I think more challenge is also on the where these things are to happen. So we've mentioned Brazil a few times, and Dennis mentioned like this is a global approach, but there are regions, territories that are sort of closer to us, either because we have a connection with Brazil and lots of years of experience there, or because we're in Europe. So if you talk about Europe, it's the unit is the Mediterranean basin, so north-south Mediterranean. And so the challenges will be also different depending on, okay, what's going to come first, or how is the speed of the steps on each front. And the law and the policies are very different from one country to the other, from one continent to the other. So, for example, we say, okay, plant trees, and you would imagine that this is a good thing and it's allowed. In places like Portugal,
it's not allowed.
It's not allowed. It's a fire hazard. So you need to be careful of, okay, which tree, what species, and what's the reasoning that's presented. So there's lots of layers of micro challenges that we need to navigate, but it does create layers of complexity.
Yeah, not that you go to jail here, but you get fines if you plant trees.
Wow. The level of bureaucracy in the Western world, it's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love you have such a big vision, and I can see you're so passionate. And yeah, obviously it takes time to build momentum in these kind of projects. So I just wonder, what kind of support are you already receiving? So this can be anything practical, financial, anything you can think of.
Mm.
Yeah, financial would help.
Mm,
Definitely any amount. When I mean any amount, I mean from cents to billions. It doesn't need to be billions from every single person, but some people who have billions and want to donate will be very welcome, because it's not a project that can be done with cents, right? But cents matter because you have billions of people. So funds, and also leverage support, like someone who knows someone, or someone who knows someone who has some knowledge or contacts or access to networks, or who understands specific bureaucracies or the legislation of some places. So we need different types of support, because it's a wide project with a lot of specifics and complexities that nobody can grasp all together. It's too much knowledge to accumulate and deal with. So we need support from different, from a broad range of activities.
I think some support that we already have is, for example, this place.
Yeah.
We often put it on the lists, but this is 300 meters down the road from the original farm, so we have access to that, and we have this place which we're not paying for. Of course, it takes time and energy to maintain it, especially at the beginning. There's support in even tapping into the network, like the collab network, the global regeneration collab network. So these ongoing connections that Daniel's very active in doing a lot of this dialogue moments and explorations online. That's because we never know when and what format another support will come in, will present itself, and we need to be very observant, very really paying attention, because we can say, oh, the universe supports us, and present something and we don't see it, and then you know, so we have to be very alert, take care of ourselves. So there's support here as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, balancing with the self-care when you're working really hard, I think is very important for sure. Okay, great. So much information. And yeah, I just wonder, if somebody listening to this, they wanted to get involved in your project in some way, what would be the steps they should take? And how could they get involved? What are the different levels?
Yeah, we need volunteer coordinators, because we can't take care of the farms ourselves. It's too much work. And for that, we have this kind of educational program for volunteers. So we try to teach good practices for them. We try to engage them with this positive narrative about climate, about health environments. But we need help. We need support. So we need right now volunteer coordinators. For that, we are running a course by the end of this year, October, likely, for volunteer coordinators. And this is an international course, so it will be taught in English mostly. But depending on the partnerships, we can teach it in other languages. And we are kind of accepting invitations to do it in different places. It doesn't need to be all here. And also, it's because we understand that a lot of projects around, well, elsewhere, like to receive volunteers, but the project coordinators can't coordinate the project and coordinate the volunteers and coordinate the farms and so
Yes.
they need volunteer coordinators. Where are them? They're not,
Mm.
because there's no training for this. Farmer has all the skills for this, but doesn't have
People skills, maybe.
soft skills
Yeah.
in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases. And people with soft skills doesn't know how to fix a tool. Normally, they don't even know how to sharp a tool. So we don't have much people with hard skills and soft skills and farming skills and building skills, electrical skills, hydraulic skills. All this knowledge is a very common need for a project that receives volunteers, right? Because the person who is coordinating them need to know the job to be able to coordinate the job. Otherwise, nobody will see that the job is not being done correctly.
Mm.
So this course is to train people to get this knowledge. This is one thing. Another thing is, if somebody is seeing this, the other types of engagement that we can have is through donations of time. So we need time for fix our website, for example. We don't have the skills. It should be very basic, right? But I'm a philosopher of ecology and agroecologist. I don't know how to use WordPress properly. I struggle. I have other skills, not this. Candy is an aquatic toxicologist. She has other skills, but she doesn't have technical skills, same as I don't. So we need other types of help, and this is one of them. Yeah, we need more people on board with many. I need mapping skills, professional mapping skills with QGIS. I need database skills that I don't have, and I don't have hundreds of hours to learn the tools or the open. I don't have this the plasticity to learn things from zero, the same as I had 30 years ago. I'm focused on the curatorship of the climate design project. I can't learn everything from scratch, right? So we need more people on board, because it's a thousands of people project. It's not a couple project.
Sure. There's some quote, I don't know how it exactly goes, but it's something like the reason people are so stressed in a capitalist system is because one person is expected to be able to do everything that a village should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this case, that a continent should be doing.
Yeah. The global village. Okay. That's great. So I'm aware of the time. So we're going to wrap up soon. And I just wonder if there's anything else you want to share, anything I didn't ask.
Yeah, for example, for Europe, the scale of the project for Europe, of course, it includes more than Europe, because just this area is the Mediterranean Basin area, but not only the Mediterranean Basin, but also other parts. So the pattern is about taking advantage on the change of temperature in the mountains and hills close by the seas, the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea. So the area starts here in Portugal and goes all the way east to Georgia. All this very big range. And when it reaches Turkey, it also goes north and south. So it crosses Turkey at Anatolia. Turkey is mostly a very altiplano, right? So it crosses the whole Anatolia, west, east, and also north, south. So from Armenia, Georgia, it goes south all the way down through the Arab Peninsula, and it goes to Kenya. So it makes like this cross here. So
Wow.
Kenya is here, Georgia is here, Portugal is here, Georgia is here, here's Turkey.
Mm.
It's not a project that we can do with one local permaculture project per country. Even if it was the case, it would be more than 50 countries.
Mm.
It would seem big, but what's the relevance of a few hectares per country in the climate scale?
Yeah.
So it's not about specific private properties. It's about creating the environment, economical, social, cultural environment, to mosaic all the projects together and interact with the other people who are not in the project, but they are sharing the air, the rainfall, the soil, the roads, the expectations for a better future. And yeah, it's an everybody's project.
I think for me, the sort of take-home message is something that's becoming more and more present for me, which is this territorial view. So when we go outside or we're going somewhere, especially if you're going on a bus, which you can have this like upstairs panoramic view, and actually really really observe and realize how many hills and mountains and valleys and water lines that never have water, but they're water lines nevertheless. How much is or would be the presence of water and the main effects of gravity and sun, and which are the main forces. Really, it's like a meditation. Focus on that. When meditation, you're trying to, the thoughts are going, but you kind of want to focus on something. And this brings us closer to feeling more part of that big scale, because it's quite, whoa, it's big, it's overwhelming. I can't possibly deal with that. It's too much. I have one lifetime, you know. Because hearing of first times when I was hearing of the 12 hilly mountain areas of Portugal that then connect. I was like, they connect with Spain, but how? You know, there's these big spaces in between, and then that connects with France and Italy and Turkey. And I'm like, but there's no mountain range that crosses all of that. But actually, at that scale, a few hundred kilometers between one mountain and the other, it doesn't matter.
It's just a couple of hours for clouds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Wow.
and scale up our perspective, our mind. That already helps.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so interesting listening. I could listen to you both talk all day. But yeah, we're going to come to an end now. So thank you so much for sharing everything. For me, it was very educational and inspiring, and I can really feel your passion, and I love your vision, and I just wish you every success.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks,
Thank you
Charlie.
very much.
Thank
Okay. All right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.